It was a mistake. For a split second it looked like something might finally come out of Noah's mouth. A confession, perhaps, or an admission of truth. Tate stilled, watching him, waiting nothing. Noah closed his mouth again, jaw tightening just slightly as he turned his face even further away. Shut, locked down, the silence hit harder this time, right between them. Tate's grip shifted, not loosening, not tightening, just there, like he didn't know what to do with it anymore. "You're impossible," he muttered under his breath, but it didn't carry the same weight as before. Because this wasn't winning, this wasn't controlled, this was something else entirely, and he didn't understand it. And beneath him Noah stayed exactly the same, silent, distant, untouchable in the only way he had left. Tate was losing patience in a way he didn't know how to name anymore. It wasn't just that Noah wasn't talking. It was as if Noah was withholding himself, as if it were a decision, like Tate didn't deserve access to him. "No," Tate said again, sharper now. "Stop this, just look at me." Nothing, that same unbearable silence. Tate stared at him for a second longer, waiting for anything, an eye shift, a breath, a crack in the armor. Something that said Noah was still in there and not just a wall pretending to be a person. But there was nothing, only distance. Tate exhaled through his nose, frustrated, and his gaze dropped briefly as he shifted closer. That's when he saw it. A folded corner of paper tucked too carefully into Noah's pocket, not accidental, not forgotten, something deliberate. "What is that?" Tate muttered. No response, of course. That made something in his chest tighten further. Before he could talk himself out of it, he reached down, not gentle, not violent, just fast and instinctive, and tugged the paper free. It came loose and fell into his hand. Noah's body shifted slightly at the movement, not toward him, away, a subtle recoil that barely existed but still somehow felt loud. Tate noticed anyway. "So there is something or someone on your mind," he said under his breath. Noah didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge it. That silence again. Tate unfolded the paper. At first his expression was just irritation, expectation of nothing important, something boring, something that didn't explain anything about why Noah had decided to erase him from the conversation. But then he read. The tone was familiar in a way that immediately shifted his expression. Not romantic, not a stranger, family. His eyes narrowed slightly as he scanned faster, jaw tightening as he caught names, references, the kind of language that meant this wasn't a hidden relationship or some secret outside connection. This was home, and Noah had been speaking to it while refusing to speak to him. Tate scoffed softly, disbelief rising. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. "So you can write letters." His eyes flicked up at Noah, still nothing, still that empty refusal. Tate looked back down and reached the end of the page. The signature sat there clearly. "Dear Noah, I've been thinking about your last letter, and I'm sorry I haven't written back as I promised. The past few months have been a whirlwind. I've been traveling through Croatia and Sicily while finalizing one of the biggest milestones of my career. My company has officially merged with another corporation, and in just 3 years I've managed to double my annual assets. It's exciting, but it's also consumed far more of my time than I ever expected. I know our relationship is important, and I'm sorry if it hasn't always felt that way. Being the CEO of your own company has a way of demanding your attention. It isn't because I don't think about you or because I don't care. Sometimes deadlines, meetings, and expectations overshadow the people who matter most without me ever intending for that to happen. That's something I'm still trying to balance. The next time I'm in California, maybe we can go out and do something fun. I haven't seen Tate in quite a while, and I'm fairly certain he'll want to kick me in the balls for disappearing again. I've never exactly been the picture of consistency. I included a photograph of myself standing outside one of the little pizza shops I found in Sicily. It made me think of you. I only wish you had been there to experience it with me. I always love reading the letters you send me. Ever since you were 12, you've written to me every few days, and I still look forward to each one. It's nice having another nephew. Take care of yourself, Noah. I hope to see you soon. With love, Joseph Blue." Tate froze. For half a second his brain didn't process it correctly. The name landed wrong, like it didn't belong in the situation he'd built in his head. Then it clicked. This wasn't a rival for Noah's affections or a thief who became Noah's nighttime bedmate. It wasn't some unknown person taking Noah away. It was his favorite uncle. Tate's expression shifted immediately, confusion breaking through first, then something sharper underneath it. "Joseph Blue," he repeated quietly. Then he looked up at Noah again. "You're writing to my uncle." No reaction, no correction, no explanation, just silence. Tate let out a short, humorless laugh, shaking his head once like he couldn't believe what he was hearing without hearing anything at all. "You're ignoring me," he said, voice rising slightly now, frustration cracking through. "You won't say a single word to me, not one." He lifted the letter slightly between them. "But you're writing full letters to my family for 12 years. That hit differently now, not jealousy in the romantic sense, something more disorienting, more personal, because it meant Noah wasn't incapable of speaking. He was choosing where his voice went, and Tate wasn't included. "That's what this is," Tate continued, sharper again. "I get shut out completely, but my fucking uncle gets pages of written conversations." Still nothing. Noah didn't even look at him. That was what made it worse, because it wasn't anger, it wasn't a conflict, it was exclusion. Tate stared at him for a long moment, letter still in hand, expression tightening as the frustration shifted into something quieter but heavier. "You know what's messed up," he said finally, voice lower now. "You won't even tell me what I did wrong." A pause, nothing from Noah. Tate exhaled slowly, gripping the letter a little tighter until the paper creased. "And you're acting like I'm the problem," he added. Still silence. And in that silence, Tate wasn't sure anymore whether he was angry or just being left behind in real time. Tate didn't speak right away. He just stood there, letter still in his hand, staring at it as if it had personally insulted him. His uncle, Joseph Blue. Someone who hadn't written to him in months, not a call, not a message, nothing. And now he was writing to Noah. Tate let out a slow breath through his nose, but it wasn't calming him down. It was building something behind his ribs, something sharp and uneven. "This is unbelievable," he muttered. Noah didn't react, didn't look up, didn't move. That was the part that made it worse. Tate turned the letter slightly, like it might make more sense from another angle, like logic could fix what he was seeing. "You're telling me," he said slowly, voice tightening, "my uncle hasn't spoken or written to me in months." A pause, his jaw clenched. "And he's writing you letters." Still nothing from Noah, not even a flicker of acknowledgement. Tate scoffed under his breath, shaking his head once, sharper now. No, that doesn't make sense," he said, almost to himself. "That doesn't make any sense." But it was right there in his hand. Carefully written words, familiar tone, a signature that didn't lie, and Noah still silent, still refusing to even look at him. Tate's grip on the paper tightened again, creasing it further. His voice rose slightly. "So you're telling me he gets answers," Tate said, stepping closer without fully thinking about it, "but I don't get a single word." Noah stayed, turned away. That was it. That was the moment something in Tate snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way that changed the temperature of him completely. Because it wasn't just being ignored anymore, it was being replaced, not romantically, not even logically, but socially, personally. Like access had been distributed unfairly and Tate had been left out of something that was still his life. "And you won't even look at me." Noah's face stayed turned away, still unmoving, silent. Tate let out a short laugh again, but there was no humor in it. "So what is this?" he said, frustration rising again. "I get nothing from him, I get nothing from you." He gestured slightly with the letter, paper crinkling in his grip. "But you two are just, what, talking behind my back now?" That landed wrong. Not because it was true, but because it felt like exclusion layered on exclusion. Tate stepped closer again, stopping just in front of Noah. "Do you understand how insane this is?" he said, voice sharper now, cracking at the edges. "He hasn't spoken to me in months, Noah, months." Still no response, not even eye contact. That final refusal, no voice, no gaze, no acknowledgement, hit harder than anything else. Tate's chest tightened, his frustration turned jagged. "And you're acting like I don't exist," he said, lower now, anger finally fully surfacing. "Like I'm not even in the same room as you." Noah remained still, unreachable. Tate exhaled sharply, shaking his head again, but now it wasn't disbelief. It was something closer to hurt dressed up as anger. "Fine," he said, voice tight, "you want silence." A pause, his eyes stayed locked on Noah, waiting. Nothing, of course nothing. Tate's grip on the letter loosened slightly as his hand lowered. "Then keep it," he muttered, voice colder now. "Keep all of it, him, the letters, whatever this is." He swallowed once, jaw clenched hard. But don't act like I'm crazy for noticing I'm the only one being shut out. And still, Noah said nothing, didn't look, didn't move. And that silence more than anything else was what made Tate's anger feel less like control and more like something he was losing too. The sound hit the room first. A sharp, explosive crack that didn't belong in a house like this. Then the wall changed. Plaster gave way under Tate's fist, leaving a jagged hole that looked almost unreal against the clean, expensive interior. White dust hung in the air for a second too long, drifting slowly down like the room itself had frozen to process what had just happened. Noah didn't move at first, he just stared. At the wall, at the damage, at Tate. That was the first time he'd ever seen him like that, fully unfiltered, no charm, no control, no mask of ease, just raw, shaking anger. Tate stood there breathing hard, shoulders tight, eyes locked on nothing in particular, like he couldn't decide where to put all that force now that it had already come out. For a second there was only silence again, different this time, heavier, broken. Noah stepped back slowly, instinct taking over before thought. His body moved behind the couch without him fully deciding to, like distance could undo what had already happened, like furniture could protect him from the fact that the wall now had a hole in it. Tate noticed the movement immediately. "No, don't," he snapped, voice rough. Noah froze for half a second. That hesitation was enough. Tate turned sharply, still keyed up, still burning, and crossed the space fast, not thinking, not weighing anything, just moving on instinct again. Noah made it 2 steps toward the front door before Tate caught up. Hands grabbed him, not gentle, not controlled, just fast enough to stop him from leaving. The motion pulled them both down in a sudden collapse of balance, the struggle messy and disoriented, more about momentum than intent. They hit the floor. Noah tried to pull away immediately, but Tate stayed too close, too intense, blocking space without fully thinking about it. "Noah," Tate said, voice strained now, lower but still sharp. "Stop, just stop moving." Noah didn't answer, didn't look, didn't speak. He just pushed again, small, instinctive, trying to create distance between them, between himself and everything that had just broken in the room. Tate felt it, that refusal again, that constant rejection of engagement, and it twisted what was already unstable. "You don't get it," Tate said, breath uneven, frustration spilling through again. "You're acting like I'm the problem here." No response, no eye contact, nothing. Tate's jaw clenched hard. His eyes flicked briefly toward the wall, toward the hole he'd made, then back to Noah like he couldn't decide which part of reality was worse. Tate was shaking now, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough that it showed in the tension of his shoulders, the uneven rise and fall of his breath, the way his hands hovered like they didn't know what to do anymore. "You said something," he demanded, voice raw. "Say it, just tell me what I did." Noah didn't look, didn't move. His gaze stayed fixed somewhere far past Tate's shoulder, like the room itself was safer than the person in front of him. That made something in Tate's chest crack harder. "All I've done," Tate said, words coming faster now, spilling out before he could shape them properly, "is take care of you." His voice rose slightly. "I paid for your education, I gave you a house, a car." A breath, his jaw tightened. "I gave you things I wasn't even supposed to give you," he said, quieter now, like he was realizing that part as he said it. "Things I shouldn't have given you, and I did anyway." Noah didn't react to any of it, didn't validate it, didn't reject it, just absence. Tate's frustration twisted again, sharper now because there was no feedback, no argument to push against, no emotion to read, nothing to grab onto. Just emptiness where Noah was supposed to be. His voice broke slightly at the edges. "So, tell me," he said, leaning closer without fully realizing it, not touching, just invading space, "what did I do that was so bad you've been waiting to leave me for 5 years?" That number hung in the air wrong, too long, too heavy. It had been sitting there unnoticed for a long time. Tate's eyes searched Noah's face again, desperate now in a way he didn't fully understand himself. "You write to my uncle," he said, anger flickering back in. "Someone who shows up once in a while, someone who left." His voice tightened. "But I'm here." A pause, still nothing. Tate's expression shifted again, confusion bleeding into frustration, then into something sharper. "And you don't even act as if I exist," he said, voice rising again, cracking at the end. "I live with you, I'm right here every day." His breath hitched slightly uneven. "And you act like I'm not even in the room." Noah's eyes stayed turned away. That was the answer, or the lack of one. Tate stared at him for a long moment, face close but not touching, like he was trying to force understanding out of proximity alone. But Noah didn't give him anything, not a glance, not a word, not even resistance anymore. Just silence so complete it felt like rejection without a sound. Tate's voice dropped again, quieter now but shaking underneath. "You're really going to do this," he said. "You're going to leave me here talking to nothing." No answer. The room felt too still. Even the damaged wall behind them seemed like it belonged to another version of the moment, one where something had been fixable. But here, there was only distance. And Tate, finally realizing that no amount of talking, giving, or demanding could pull Noah back into the space between them. Tate's voice didn't come out steady anymore, it fractured halfway through the sentence. "Noah, please." He was too close, but not in a forceful way now, just collapsed into the space between them as all the energy had finally burned out of him at once. His hands hovered for a second, uncertain, before one finally lifted and brushed through Noah's hair with a shaking gentleness that didn't match the chaos in his expression. Noah didn't react, didn't lean into it, didn't flinch away, just stayed exactly where he was, turned slightly aside, eyes fixed somewhere far past the room, like Tate wasn't even part of the same moment. That absence made Tate's breath hitch. "Look at me," Tate whispered. Nothing, not even the smallest shift. Tate swallowed hard, his forehead lowering slightly like he was trying to get closer just to be seen. "I don't understand," he said, voice breaking again, thinner now. "What did I do?" His hand stayed in Noah's hair, not pulling, just there, like if he let go completely, something final would happen. "I've done everything," he continued, words spilling now, no longer organized. "Everything I could think of. I gave you what you needed, I gave you what I had, I tried to make it right, I tried to make it enough." A shaky breath. "And it's still not enough." Silence answered him. Noah didn't move, didn't blink toward him, didn't acknowledge the breaking voice right in front of him. Tate's expression tightened, confusion and hurt colliding now without a place to land. "I turned down everything," he said, quieter, almost like he was confessing something he hadn't meant to admit out loud. "Opportunities, people, plans, all of it, because I thought this was it, that this was supposed to mean something." His hand trembled slightly in Noah's hair, then steadied again. "And you won't even talk to me." That last part came out smaller, not angry anymore, just raw, like it didn't fit in his chest. Tate searched Noah's face again, desperate for anything, a reaction. Irritation, softness, even rejection he could argue with, but there was nothing, only that same turned-away gaze. That same silence that didn't push back or accept, just erased him. Tate's breath shook. "I don't know how to fix it if you won't tell me what's broken," he said. A pause, still nothing. His hand slowly slid out of Noah's hair like he couldn't tell anymore whether holding on was helping or making it worse. His voice dropped to almost nothing. "Please," he said again, quieter, "just tell me what I did." No answer came, and in the silence that followed, Tate finally stopped sounding angry. He just sounded lost. Tate wasn't angry anymore, that was the worst part. The anger had burned out of him completely, leaving something raw underneath it, shaky, unsteady, exposed. His breath hitched as he tried to speak again, but it came out uneven. "I don't understand," he said, voice breaking. "I really don't understand what I'm supposed to do here." His hands hovered near Noah for a moment, then slowly settled, not forcing anything now, just resting in the space like he didn't trust what would happen if he pulled away completely. "I've tried," Tate continued, quieter. "I've tried everything I know how to try." A pause, his eyes searched Noah's face again, desperate for even the smallest response. Nothing, still nothing. Tate swallowed hard, blinking quickly like he was trying to hold himself together. "We were always together," he said, voice softer now, more distant, like he was remembering instead of arguing. "Since we were kids, you were always there. I didn't even think about what it meant, I just expected you to be there." His expression tightened slightly. "And now you won't even look at me." That landed harder than anything he had said before. Tate's voice cracked again. "I don't know what changed," he admitted. "I don't know where I lost you." He hesitated, then leaned forward slightly, not forcing contact, just collapsing a little under his own weight. "I keep thinking if I just figure it out," he said, "I can fix it." A shaky breath. But I can't fix something you won't even explain. Noah stayed completely still, no reaction, no answer. Tate's eyes glistened now, frustration finally dissolving into something quieter and heavier. I don't want anyone else, he said, barely audible. I don't want some life I didn't choose, I don't want distance, I don't want any of that. His voice dropped further. I just want it to go back to how it was. Silence answered him again. Tate closed his eyes for a second, like even looking hurt too much now. When he opened them again, his voice was almost pleading but softer, less demand, more fear. Just don't shut me out, he said, please. And still Noah didn't move, didn't speak, didn't give him anything to hold on to. Only the silence between them stretched longer than Tate knew how to fill. Tate lost all control as he tore the letters into what seemed like millions of tiny pieces. Jealousy, anger, hurt, and disbelief surged through him, culminating in his hands shredding every letter Uncle Joey had ever written to Noah. Noah had refused to speak to Tate. Instead, he had poured his thoughts into letters addressed to Tate's favorite uncle. To Tate, it felt like the ultimate betrayal. He felt abandoned, replaced, and shut out of Noah's life. The letters became symbols of everything he feared, that Noah no longer needed him. Unable to bear the sight of them, Tate destroyed every last one. He didn't want them anywhere near his home. Tears streamed uncontrollably down Tate's face. He wasn't simply crying, he was unraveling. Every breath came in uneven gasps as though the weight of his emotions had become too much for his body to carry. His chest tightened, his shoulders shook, and he struggled to steady himself, but the harder he tried, the more overwhelmed he became. Noah, he whispered weakly, though he could barely force the word out. His vision blurred through tears. His thoughts raced so quickly that he couldn't separate one emotion from the next. Hurt blended into jealousy, jealousy became anger, anger dissolved into heartbreak. The crushing feeling of being replaced settled over him until it seemed impossible to think about anything else. His hands trembled uncontrollably. He tried to take a deep breath, but it caught in his throat. I can't, he managed between sobs. His entire body began trembling. The emotional strain was overwhelming. Tate had experienced seizures before, but only during moments of extreme emotional distress, and Noah immediately recognized the warning signs. Tate. Before Noah could reach him, Tate's knees buckled. He collapsed onto the floor. Tate. Noah rushed to his side just as Tate's body stiffened and the seizure began. Thinking quickly, Noah grabbed a nearby couch cushion and carefully slipped it beneath Tate's head to protect him from the hardwood floor. Then he gently rolled Tate onto his right side, making sure he had room to breathe while staying beside him the entire time. It's okay, Noah said softly, trying to keep his own fear from showing. You're okay, I'm right here, you're safe. For several long minutes, Noah remained beside him, speaking in a calm, reassuring voice while waiting for the seizure to pass. It's okay, Tate, just let it pass, I've got you. Gradually, the movement slowed until they finally stopped. The seizure had run its course. Tate's body went completely limp with exhaustion. As he regained awareness, Noah carefully gathered him into his arms, supporting him against his chest. It's over, Noah whispered, gently rubbing his back. You're okay, just rest, I've got you. Still breathing unevenly and emotionally drained, Tate remained in Noah's embrace while Noah stayed with him, speaking softly and giving him time to recover. After the seizure ended, Tate slipped into unconsciousness, utterly exhausted. Noah carefully lifted Tate's head onto his chest and wrapped both arms around him, holding him as though he could shield him from everything that had just happened. His fingers slowly threaded through Tate's dark hair in gentle, comforting strokes while he listened to the steady rhythm of Tate's breathing. I'm here, Noah whispered quietly, just rest. For the next 3 hours, Noah barely moved. He remained on the floor, cradling Tate against him, gently running his fingers through his hair and waiting patiently for him to wake. When Tate finally opened his eyes, he looked drained. His face was pale, his eyelids heavy, and even the smallest movement seemed to take effort. Easy, Noah said softly, offering a reassuring smile. Don't try to get up too fast. Supporting most of Tate's weight, Noah carefully helped him to his feet and guided him to the couch. Tate leaned heavily against him, still weak from the seizure and emotionally spent. Once Tate was lying comfortably on the couch, Noah pulled a blanket over him and brushed a few loose strands of hair away from his forehead. You need to sleep, Noah murmured. Tate gave the faintest nod before his eyes drifted closed once more. Within moments, he was asleep again, and this time he didn't wake for another 12 hours while Noah stayed close by, quietly watching over him. Tate slept for nearly 12 hours on the couch without stirring. Throughout the night, Noah checked on him constantly. Every so often, he would kneel beside the couch, watching the slow rise and fall of Tate's chest, making sure his breathing remained steady and that no medical complications developed after the seizure. Each time Noah saw his breathing was calm, he let out another quiet sigh of relief. Fortunately, Tate didn't have another seizure. Noah knew that if he had shown any signs of another episode, he would have called Andrew immediately. By morning, Tate looked noticeably better. The color had returned to his cheeks and the strain that had twisted his face the night before had softened, replaced by the exhaustion of someone whose body had finally begun to recover. When Tate slowly opened his eyes, Noah was already beside him. "Hey," Noah said gently, "take it easy." He helped Tate sit up a little before holding a glass of water to his lips. "Drink slowly," Noah said, "you're probably dehydrated." Tate took several careful sips before leaning back against the cushions. His body still felt heavy, every muscle aching from the seizure, but his mind immediately returned to the hurt that had caused it. He looked at Noah for a long moment. His voice was quiet at first. "Why do you ignore me all the time?" Noah's expression fell. He slowly shook his head. "Don't think about that right now," he said softly. "Just lie back and rest." "No." The word came out sharper than Noah expected. Tate's tired eyes hardened with frustration. "No," he repeated, his voice growing more insistent. "Why are we so distant?" Silence settled between them. Tate never looked away. He waited for Noah to answer. Hot, wet tears streamed down Tate's cheeks. His breathing hitched with every choked sob as he struggled to keep his voice steady. "Do you know what it feels like," Tate asked through trembling breaths, "to want somebody who doesn't want you back?" Noah opened his mouth but no words came. "I feel like I'm the only one pursuing this relationship, Noah. I'm the only one doing the emotional labor." Tate swallowed hard, his voice cracking. "I feel like I'm playing a game of tennis all by myself. I serve the ball and you never hit it back. You don't serve, you don't even try. You just stand there watching me." He wiped helplessly at his eyes. "And sometimes you're not even there, not emotionally anyway." Noah lowered his gaze to the floor. "I'm listening," he said quietly. "But you're not hearing me," Tate replied. Silence. Tate sniffled, trying to catch his breath. "Why do I even put up with you?" Noah's shoulders slumped. "I don't know," he admitted in barely more than a whisper. "I could pick up the phone and have a dozen people here within minutes." Tate gestured angrily toward the door. "People who actually want to spend time with me, people who answer my calls, people who make me feel like I matter." Noah closed his eyes. "I'm sorry." "But it's always 'I'm sorry,'" Tate interrupted. "Nothing changes." His voice rose despite his exhaustion. "I haven't done anything to deserve this. I've prioritized you in obscene ways. I've ignored family expectations. I've pushed aside the social rules I grew up with. I've rearranged my entire life around you." Another sob escaped him. "And somehow," he whispered, "it's still not enough." Noah remained silent. Tate searched his face, hoping for reassurance, an explanation, anything. Instead, Noah only looked heartbroken. "I don't think anything I do will ever be enough for you," Tate said, his voice growing quieter. "You obviously don't want me." Noah looked up immediately. "Tate." But Tate shook his head before Noah could continue. "No." His tears fell freely now. "Just get out of here." Noah didn't move. "Tate." "I said get out." The room fell silent. Noah stood frozen, unable to find the words that would undo years of hurt, while Tate sat on the couch, crying so hard he could barely breathe, waiting for an answer that never seemed to come. Noah swallowed. It was small, but in the silence it sounded loud. Tate froze slightly, like he'd been hit with something unexpected just by that movement alone. Then Noah spoke. His voice was quiet, rough from disuse, like it hadn't been allowed out in too long. "Who's fucking Wayne?" For a second, the question didn't land properly. Tate blinked, then his expression shifted, confusion first, sharp and immediate, like his mind refused to accept what he'd just heard. "What?" Tate said. Noah didn't look at him. Didn't move toward him, didn't soften, just that same distant angle of his face like even speaking hadn't pulled him back into the room. Tate straightened slightly, as if the question itself had forced him to reset. Noah, he said, slower now, voice tighter, that's what you're asking me right now. Noah's throat moved again as he swallowed. Silence stretched for half a second, then Tate spoke again, even quieter. That's what you got from everything I just said, he snapped, frustration flaring again. You're ignoring me, you won't look at me, you won't talk to me, and your response is what? Some weird question. Noah still didn't look at him, but his voice stayed steady now as something had finally locked into place inside him. Who's Wayne? He repeated. Tate stared at him like he couldn't decide whether to be angry or stunned. Then he exhaled sharply through his nose, shaking his head. You think this is a game, he said, voice rising slightly. You think this is about winning. Noah didn't answer that, didn't need to. The silence itself was the answer. Tate's expression tightened, frustration twisting again, but now it was layered with disbelief. I'm not trying to win anything, he said. I'm trying to understand why you're acting like I don't exist. Noah's eyes stayed fixed somewhere else, not on Tate, never on Tate, and when he spoke again it wasn't louder but it cut cleaner. Then you are losing. That landed. Tate went still, not angry for a second, just still, like the words had taken something out of the air between them and left a space neither of them knew how to fill. His mouth opened slightly, then closed again. Losing what? He said finally, quieter. Noah didn't answer immediately, and in that pause Tate's frustration flickered again, trying to rise. Tate's face shifted again, confusion, then something closer to hurt. That's not what I said, he replied quickly. But Noah finally turned his head just slightly, not enough to meet Tate's eyes, just enough to change the angle of the silence. And when he spoke again, it was barely above a whisper. Then why does it feel like you're trying to keep me here like I already decided to go? That question didn't accuse, it didn't fight, it just exposed the shape of everything underneath them, and for the first time Tate didn't have a fast answer ready, only silence answered back, different this time. Not Noah's silence, Tate's. Noah finally looked at him, not fully, just enough that Tate immediately latched onto it like proof that something had cracked open, but Noah's expression wasn't defensive, it wasn't guilty, it was tired. That was worse. You keep saying we don't have secrets, Noah said quietly. His voice wasn't loud, it didn't need to be, it cut through the room anyway. And then you say things like that, he added. Tate's jaw tightened instantly. I'm not the one hiding stuff, Tate shot back, still heated. You are, you've been acting weird for weeks, months, and now I find letters and you won't even. No, interrupted, sharper this time. Just that one word. Tate stopped mid-sentence. Noah exhaled slowly, eyes drifting away again, not to avoid him this time but like holding eye contact cost too much energy. You don't get to say we don't have secrets, he said, and then yell at me for not telling you everything while you're already deciding what I'm allowed to feel. Tate's frustration flickered. That's not what I'm doing, he snapped. Noah shook his head slightly. It is, he said simply. A beat. The silence that followed wasn't empty anymore, it was loaded. Tate's chest rose and fell unevenly like he was trying to hold onto anger because the alternative was something messier. Then he pushed again, voice sharper. Then explain it, he said. Explain why you flinch when I mention certain people. Explain why you won't look at me. Explain why I feel like I'm talking to a wall lately. Noah's throat moved as he swallowed. For a second it looked like he might shut down again, but then he spoke, carefully, controlled. Because you don't hear me when I talk, Noah said. Tate scoffed immediately. That's not true. Noah's eyes flicked up briefly, just enough to land the next words. Yes, he said quietly, it is. That landed heavier than the shouting. Tate's mouth opened, then closed again. Noah continued before he could recover. You say there are no secrets, Noah said, voice still low, but every time something uncomfortable shows up you turn it into a demand. Tate's brows pulled together. That's not. You don't ask, Noah cut in again, calmer now but firmer, you corner it. Silence. Tate looked like he wanted to interrupt again but didn't find the timing. Noah's gaze drifted away again. And when I don't answer fast enough, he added, you fill in the blanks yourself. That one hung there because it was accurate in a way neither of them had fully admitted out loud. Tate's voice dropped slightly, still tense but less explosive. So you're just not going to tell me anything, he said, that's your solution. Noah didn't answer immediately, then quietly. I'm trying not to make it worse. Tate frowned. Worse how? Noah hesitated. And for the first time there was something vulnerable in the pause, not dramatic, not performative, just real uncertainty. Then he said it. Losing you. Tate went still again, but this time the silence wasn't confusion, it was something closer to recognition, and neither of them moved to fill it. Tate shook his head hard, as he could physically dislodge the conversation. No, he said sharper now, no, we're not doing this. But Noah didn't back down this time. He stayed where he was, voice quieter but steadier than before. Who's Wayne? Noah yelled for a third time. Tate's jaw tightened immediately. No one, he said too fast. That answer was wrong, Noah caught it instantly. No, Noah said. More firmly now, that's no one. Silence stretched between them, then Noah continued carefully as each word mattered. Your mom and Joey said he used to spend nights at your house, he said. That something happened, that's why no one talks about him. Tate's expression shifted just slightly, a flicker of discomfort quickly buried. I told you, he said, voice tightening again, I don't want to talk about that. Noah blinked once. That's not an answer. Tate let out a short breath through his nose, frustrated again, shaking his head. It's in the past, he said, leave it there. That word leave hit differently, Noah's expression changed, not angry at first, just strained. You don't get to decide what I'm allowed to ask, Noah said quietly. Tate looked up sharply. Noah. No, Noah interrupted, voice rising now for the first time in a while. You don't get to say we're close, that there are no secrets, and then shut down anything that actually matters. Tate's frustration came back immediately. I said I don't want to talk about it, he snapped. And I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm kept in the dark, Noah shot back. That word relationship hung there heavier than anything before it. Tate froze slightly. Noah didn't soften, didn't look away this time. His voice stayed firm, but there was a strain underneath it. I don't know what happened with Wayne, Noah said. I don't know why your uncle writes to me but not you. I don't know why you act like certain names shut everything down. A pause, then quieter. And I'm tired of guessing. Tate's mouth opened, then closed again. For once he didn't have an immediate comeback. Noah exhaled, tension still in his shoulders. I'm not asking you to tell me everything, he said. I'm asking you not to decide for me what I can and can't understand. Silence. Tate looked away first this time, not fully leaving, not storming off, just breaking eye contact like it was too heavy to hold. And Noah stayed where he was, breathing unevenly but not backing down anymore. The room didn't feel like it was exploding now. It felt like something had finally been said that couldn't be unsaid. Noah's voice stayed steady even if his hands didn't. You can't complain I keep things from you, he said quietly, eyes fixed on Tate now, when you do the exact same thing on a much bigger scale. Tate's jaw tightened immediately, but he didn't interrupt this time. Noah continued anyway. I have a right to keep things to myself, he said, but you don't get to tell me everything is open between us when it isn't. A pause, his throat moved as he swallowed. You don't get to say there are no secrets, Noah added, and then shut down anything you don't want to explain. That landed, it actually landed. Tate's expression flickered, something defensive trying to rise but not fully forming. Then Noah's voice sharpened slightly. Who is Wayne? Silence. Tate didn't answer immediately. That hesitation said more than either of them wanted. Noah stepped into it anyway. I'm asking you directly, he said, not guessing, not reading between the lines, just tell me. Tate finally exhaled, slow and tight. I told you, he said, voice lower now, controlled but strained, I don't want to talk about that. Noah shook his head once. That's not an answer, he said again. Tate's eyes narrowed slightly. Noah. No, Noah cut in, firmer now. Don't do that, don't dodge and then act like I'm unreasonable for noticing. The room tightened again, tension rebuilding but different this time, less explosive, more structural, like something fundamental was being tested. Tate's voice dropped. "It's not relevant," he said. Noah didn't blink. "It is if it changes how you react every time I bring it up," he replied. That hit something deeper. Tate went still for a second, just long enough for Noah to see it. There was something there, not imagined, not exaggerated, but buried. Tate looked away briefly, then back. "You don't understand it," he said finally. Noah didn't move. "Then explain it," he said simply. "A beat." Tate's expression tightened again, frustration returning, but thinner now, less certain. "I can't just," he started, then stopped. Noah's voice stayed calm, but there was steel in it now. "You can," he said, "you just don't want to." That landed like a final line in a long argument. Silence followed. Noah's answer came immediately. "No," he said, "I'm making it clear." A pause. Then more carefully but still firm. "Because right now," Noah added, "I don't know if I'm reacting to you, or to whatever you're not telling me." Tate's expression shifted again, anger trying to rise but not finding a clean target anymore. And for the first time, the argument didn't feel like winning or losing. It felt like something neither of them knew how to finish without finally saying what they'd been avoiding. Tate's shoulders dropped a fraction as the air had finally shifted, but not in a way that helped. "I can't talk about it," he said again, slower this time, "not because I don't want to." His voice roughened. "Because I can't." He swallowed, eyes flicking away for a second like the words themselves were uncomfortable to hold. "It's not my secret to tell," Tate added. "I'm not at liberty to explain it. I'm not keeping it from you to hurt you. I promised someone that I wouldn't discuss the embarrassing topic with anyone." A pause. Then more firmly, almost pleading in its own restrained way. "You have to understand that." Noah didn't respond immediately. He studied Tate instead, not his face in a searching way for comfort, but in a way that measured the structure of what he was being given. The language, the refusal, the boundaries were drawn so cleanly that they didn't leave anything to grab onto. "That's still keeping it from me," Noah said quietly. Tate shook his head once, sharper now. "No, listen to me," he said, frustration creeping back in under the restraint. "There's a difference." Noah didn't move. Tate exhaled, running a hand briefly through his hair, like he was trying to keep himself from snapping back into anger. "I'm not choosing to tell you," he said. "I'm telling you I can't talk about it." That landed differently, a beat of silence. Noah's gaze didn't soften, but it did change, less accusatory, more uncertain. "Who's telling you not to say anything?" Noah asked. Tate hesitated just long enough to be noticeable, then quieter. "It doesn't matter." Noah's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's the same answer," he said. Tate let out a breath that sounded tired now, not sharp. "I know," he admitted. Silence settled again, but it wasn't clean anymore. It was layered, because now Noah wasn't just hearing refusal, he was hearing constraint, and Tate wasn't just hiding something. He looked like someone stuck inside it. Neither of them moved for a moment, then Noah spoke carefully. "Every time you say that," he said, "you put me on the outside of my own life with you." Tate looked up at that. Something flickered in his expression, conflict, maybe guilt, maybe both. "I'm not trying to do that," he said quietly. Noah held his gaze this time. "Then stop making me feel like I'm guessing which version of you is real." The room went still again, but this time neither of them had an easy exit from it. Tate exhaled sharply, the frustration finally breaking through the careful control he'd been trying to hold. "It's not my secret to tell," he said again, but this time it came out tighter. "I could get in trouble." He shook his head once, like that should be enough to make it make sense. "You have to trust me," Tate added, voice lower now. "If it were my secret to tell you, I would have already told you." Noah didn't respond right away. His expression stayed steady, but his eyes tracked the contradiction instead of the reassurance. "That's what you keep saying," Noah said quietly. Tate's jaw tightened. "No, listen," he insisted. "You're not hearing me. This isn't about hiding things from you, it's about not being able to say it." A pause. Then Noah's voice cut in, calmer but sharper in focus. "Then why does it feel like I'm the only one in the dark?" Tate hesitated. That hesitation gave Noah more space, Noah stepped into it. And don't tell me it's just one secret, he said, because it's not. Tate's eyes flicked up. Noah continued. There's Wayne, he said. There's your reaction every time I say his name. There's your favorite uncle writing to me instead of you. There are people calling you that you don't want me to know about. Tate's expression tightened immediately. Noah's voice stayed level, but there was strain underneath it now. And there's that contact in your phone, Noah added, the one you keep stepping away to answer when it's your birthday. Tate went still. Noah didn't look away. I hear it. Noah said, I notice it. You think I don't, but I do. Tate opened his mouth. Noah raised a hand slightly, not aggressively, just stopping the interruption. Don't tell me it's someone else's secret every time, Noah said, because I'm starting to hear a pattern. A beat. The room felt heavier again, but quieter than before. Noah's voice softened just slightly but stayed firm. How many things are not your secret before it becomes a system of things I'm not allowed to understand? He asked. Tate's frustration flickered again, but it didn't land cleanly this time. It had nowhere to attach without breaking the explanation he'd just given. He rubbed his jaw once, exhaling slowly. I'm not trying to shut you out, he said again, but it sounded less certain now. Noah held his gaze. Then start acting like I'm allowed to be in the same reality as you, he replied quietly. Silence followed, not explosive, not distant, just unresolved, like both of them had finally reached the same wall from different sides. Tate sat down beside him more carefully this time, like the fight had drained out of his posture and left something heavier behind. His hands rested loosely near his knees, not reaching for Noah now, just existing in the same space. I told you about my vasectomy, Tate said quietly after a moment. Nobody knows that but you. A pause. I've told you things I've never told anyone, he added. Parties, drugs, girls, things I did when I was younger, just trying to figure out how to exist. His voice tightened slightly, but not with anger this time, more like strain. I'm not keeping things from you because I want to, he said. Sometimes things are just painful to talk about. Noah listened without interrupting, still not fully looking at him but not turning away as sharply now either. Tate exhaled slowly, then leaned forward a little, elbows on his knees. I don't want to talk about Wayne, he said again, more firmly. Not because I'm hiding it, because it's not a good memory, and it's not my secret to tell in the way you're asking. A beat. Then he continued quieter. The person calling me, it's a female teacher from high school. His jaw tightened. She didn't stop when I asked. She didn't stop when my father stepped in either. It's a prank. It's not funny. It's someone who doesn't know boundaries. She's not dangerous, and there have been 3 different female ex-lovers who have harassed me by phone over the last 2 years. She's just one of many. They're not important, and they're not going to hurt anyone but themselves. Sometimes when you're rich, you meet delusional, obsessed, or crazy people. He looked down at his hands for a second, then back up. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you carrying that, he admitted. That anxiety, that uncertainty, I didn't want it spilling onto you. His voice softened further. You shouldn't have to live inside all of this with me. Noah finally spoke quietly. That's the problem. Tate looked at him. Noah's expression was steady, but there was something worn underneath it now, like he was trying to hold too many pieces of truth at once. You keep deciding what I should and shouldn't carry, Noah said, what I should and shouldn't know. Tate started to respond. Noah continued. And then you act surprised when I feel shut out. Silence. Tate leaned back slightly, as the weight of that landed harder than he expected. I haven't had any lovers since we were at Brown, Tate said quietly. The day I smashed my phone against the wall, that was the end of it. He looked down at his hands. It's been at least 3 years since I've had a single sexual contact saved in my phone for that reason. When I told you I was done with lovers, done with women who meant nothing, I meant it. His eyes met Noah's. You're not competing with anyone, Noah, because there isn't any competition. His voice softened. I don't have lovers anymore. I don't have anyone waiting for me. I don't have secret relationships or people I'm seeing behind your back. He took a slow breath. The only reason there are a few unusual caller IDs still in my phone is that if one of them ever contacts me again, I want proof. That way I can show my father if I need to, and he can have our attorneys pursue a restraining order. Tate gave a weary shake of his head. I've only ever had to get one restraining order. It was against a woman I met when I was 15. He let out a tired sigh. A few of my former lovers just never understood that it was a one-time thing. They kept calling, leaving voicemails, showing up, or acting like there was supposed to be something more. He looked directly at Noah. I don't sleep with people more than once, never have. Another pause. And I haven't had a hookup in 3 years. His expression was one of exhaustion rather than pride. Some people just don't take the hint. They mistake a single night for the beginning of a relationship and then they refuse to let go. He swallowed. But I let all of that go years ago. His voice became almost pleading. I wanted you to know that because I don't want you thinking there's someone else. There isn't, there hasn't been for a long time. You're not a placeholder, Noah, Tate said quietly. You've never been a placeholder. Noah looked at him but didn't answer. I've been emotionally committed to this relationship since my 15th birthday, probably even before that. Noah's eyes lowered to the floor. He slowly nodded. Rich boys have lovers, that's just the world I grew up in, but those relationships were never emotional, they were never about love, they were nothing more than physical, mechanical release. Noah swallowed. I know, he murmured. I never loved any of them, I never wanted anything beyond a single hookup, I never wanted a future with them. Silence settled between them. I never brought women into the house where we grew up, that house was ours. The only time I ever had sex there was during a family party when every guest room was occupied and there wasn't anywhere else to go. Noah closed his eyes for a moment. I remember that party, he said softly. Tate reached over and took Noah's hand. The only emotional connection I've ever wanted is with you. Noah's fingers tightened around Tate's, but he still couldn't find anything more to say. Sure, I'm close with some of your friends from Brown. I care about them, but it isn't what this is. He gestured between them. There is no competition. No lovers. No one is waiting for my attention. No one I'm choosing over you. Noah blinked rapidly, his eyes beginning to glisten. I never knew you felt all of this, he whispered. Tate let out a shaky breath. You've always been the person I wanted to come home to. Noah stared at him speechless. You're more than a priority, Noah. Another tear rolled down Tate's cheek. You're the only person I know how to prioritize. Noah's lips parted but nothing came out. His silence wasn't indifference. It was the silence of someone overwhelmed by the weight of another person's love. Tate searched his face anyway. Say something, he pleaded. After a long pause, Noah finally met his eyes. I don't know what to say. His voice barely rose above a whisper. I believe you. Tate nodded slowly, still holding Noah's hand. That's all I needed to hear. Tate sniffled, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand. Before my 15th birthday, I didn't always treat you right. Noah remained quiet. His eyes stayed on Tate, listening. Sometimes I formed emotional connections with people I hooked up with. I was still trying to figure out my sexuality, trying to understand what I wanted and who I was. Tate's voice faltered. I didn't mean to hurt you. Noah lowered his head. I know, he said almost inaudibly. Tate took a slow, shaky breath. I have been in love before, I've had crushes, I've even slept with 1 or 2 people that I genuinely cared about. Noah's expression tightened, but he didn't interrupt. But none of those relationships could have become a future. Silence hung between them. I was just a kid, Tate continued. I was confused, I was trying to understand myself. Noah's fingers curled together in his lap. He waited. But once I was old enough to understand what I actually wanted, Tate said, meeting Noah's eyes, I never wanted anyone else. Noah looked up. His lips parted slightly, but no words came. I stopped looking. Another tear rolled down Tate's cheek. I wasn't searching for someone better. He shook his head. I already knew who mattered to me. Noah blinked hard, his own eyes beginning to fill. I've made mistakes, Tate whispered. I've hurt you, I've been selfish, I know that. Noah gave the smallest nod. But I've never stopped choosing you. The room fell silent. Noah stared at Tate for several long seconds before quietly asking. You really mean that? Tate nodded without hesitation. I've never been more certain of anything. Noah looked away, overwhelmed. A tear escaped despite his attempt to hide it. Tate reached over and gently rested his hand on Noah's. I don't want anyone else, Noah. Noah looked back at him, unable to hold his gaze for long. His fingers slowly closed around Tate's hand. I hear you, he whispered. Tate managed the faintest, exhausted smile. I just want us to be as close as we've always been. Noah didn't answer right away. Instead, he held onto Tate's hand a little tighter. Tate took a slow breath before continuing. I'm a wealthy man, Noah. The world I work in comes with responsibilities that most people never have to think about. Noah listened without interrupting. Sometimes I have secrets, but they're not personal secrets. They're business matters, financial information, corporate profits, confidential agreements, things I learn about clients, investors, and other companies. He looked down at his hands. I also know things about people in my family's social circle, things that were shared with me in confidence. Noah gave a small nod. And if I repeated those things, it could seriously damage someone's reputation, my family's business, or the trust people place in me. He sighed. So when I tell you I can't talk about something, I'm not trying to shut you out. Noah's expression softened. I'm listening, he said quietly. Tate met his eyes. I'm not intentionally keeping things from you, Noah. His voice was calm but earnest. Sometimes I literally can't tell you, not because I don't trust you, but because ethics matter, professionalism matters. I've signed confidentiality agreements. People trust me with information that isn't mine to share. He paused. If I broke that trust for anyone, even for you, I wouldn't be the kind of man I want to be. Noah remained silent for a moment before speaking. I never thought of it that way. Tate gave a faint, tired smile. I want to tell you everything I can, but there are some things that simply don't belong to me. They're someone else's story, someone else's business. He squeezed Noah's hand gently. The things I don't tell you aren't the things that matter most. His voice softened. The things that matter most are the ones I've been trying to tell you all day. Noah looked down at their joined hands. I believe you, he whispered. Tate exhaled, some of the tension finally leaving his shoulders. Tate didn't answer right away. For the first time, there wasn't an argument ready, just the two of them sitting in it, everything said and still not resolved. Noah stayed still for a moment longer than he meant to. The frustration was still there, tight, controlled, sharp around the edges, but now it had something underneath it that made it harder to push forward blindly. Okay, Noah said quietly, since you can't tell me about Wayne because it's too painful and not your secret to share. His eyes stayed locked on Tate now. Tate exhaled slowly, rubbing the bridge of his nose again like the pressure behind his eyes had been building for hours. Sometimes things happen, he said quietly, and I don't want to talk about them. A beat. It's embarrassing, he added. That obsessed teacher from high school kept contacting me for years, that's it. It got weird, it got persistent. I didn't escalate it the way I should have, and now it's finally been handled. His jaw tightened slightly. And before you ask, yes, it's done. It's not continuing. There's no reason for her to call me, but if she does, I will contact an attorney. He glanced at Noah, watching for a reaction. Noah didn't speak immediately. Tate let out a short, dry laugh, more reflex than humor. Uncle Joey would have made a joke out of her harassing me, he said. Something about me not being able to keep it in my pants. He always does that. Then his expression shifted slightly, softer at the edges, like he realized he was drifting. She's not dangerous, Tate added quickly, almost to reassure himself as much as Noah. Just obsessive, harmless in terms of actual harm. A pause. His voice dropped a little. Just one of those situations you don't really know how to explain without it sounding worse than it is. She wouldn't hurt a fly, but it was her unzipping my fly that started this whole stalking scenario. Tate laughed, then he looked at Noah again, and that's when he noticed it. Noah's face hadn't changed the way he expected. Noah wasn't laughing, wasn't even smiling, just watching him, still, focused. Tate's expression faltered slightly. What? He asked more carefully now. Noah shook his head once. I'm not laughing, he said quietly. Tate blinked, then gave a small, uncertain huff of breath. Yeah, he said a little awkwardly, I know, I just thought you might have. He stopped himself. The air shifted slightly again, that familiar tension returning, but softer now, less explosive, more uncertain. Tate looked down for a second, then back up. Forget it, he said quietly, bad joke. And for the first time in a while, neither of them pushed it further immediately, just sat in the awkward space where explanation didn't fully erase what had already been felt. Noah's voice came quieter. Are you sure she's harmless? Tate exhaled through his nose, immediately shaking his head. She is, he said quickly. She's not dangerous to other people, that's not what this is. A pause, then he added more carefully. She's unstable when she's not on her medication, that's part of the problem. Noah's eyes stayed on him. Tate continued, like he'd been holding this in for a long time and it was finally spilling out in a structured way. She believes things that aren't real, he said, that I'm involved with her, that we're married. A beat. His jaw tightened slightly. We're not, we never were. He let out a short, humorless breath. It was years ago, he added. A long time ago, it didn't mean anything like that. Silence. Noah didn't interrupt. Tate rubbed the side of his hand briefly across his mouth, then dropped it. She and I have only fucked once, and she blew it up into the wedding, the love, and the connection of the century. I think she has a delusional disorder or possibly BPD. She's more of a danger to herself when she's not in therapy or when she's not medicated than if she were taking care of herself. I tried everything, he said more quietly now. Ignoring it, responding once, setting boundaries, it never stopped. I even helped pay for her therapy at one point just to get it under control. His expression tightened. And then she stopped going. A pause. That's why it dragged on. It started just before my 14th birthday and carried on until I was halfway through my Brown attendance. I haven't heard from her in a year and I hope I never do again. He looked at Noah again, more direct now. It took me years just to get it to calm down enough that it wasn't constant. Noah's voice came carefully. So it's resolved now. Tate hesitated. Yeah, he said, it's contained, it's not ongoing the way it was. Another pause. Then Noah asked, quieter but sharper. And the gun call? Tate went still for a fraction of a second, then he shook his head. That's not what it was, he said. It was her spiraling, threatening herself, not me or you. He exhaled slowly, frustration flickering again but more controlled now. And I didn't want you involved in any of it, he added. That's why I didn't tell you, not because I'm hiding things, because I didn't want you pulled into something like that. Silence settled again, different this time, fewer accusations, more weight. Noah finally spoke. You keep saying that, he said quietly, not telling me things so I don't get pulled in. A pause. But I'm already here, he added. I'm already in it with you. Tate didn't respond right away, and for once the silence between them wasn't about secrets. It was about what it costs to protect someone by keeping them at a distance. Noah went quiet for a moment. His expression didn't change immediately, but something in his focus sharpened, like he was trying to fit the pieces together without letting emotion lead. Why did she think you were married to her? He asked finally. Tate exhaled through his nose, rubbing his face again like the memory itself was irritating. It got out of hand, he said, way back then. A pause. I said things I shouldn't have said. I was very young and stupid. I didn't know how to handle her reaction to things and I made it worse by trying to calm it down. His jaw tightened slightly. And it stuck, he added. In her head it became something else, something I never agreed to. Noah watched him carefully. Tate continued. Voice lower now. My family didn't even understand the full situation until much later, he said, and by then it was already complicated. He paused again, more honest now. I tried to shut it down for years, Tate admitted. Different ways, distance, boundaries, anything that would make it stop escalating. Silence settled for a beat, then Noah spoke, quieter but direct. And the reason you didn't tell me is still that you think it would pull me into it. Tate nodded once. Yeah, he said, because it's not just about me. People like that don't stay contained if they think there's another person involved. He looked at Noah then, more steady. I didn't want you in the middle of something unstable. Noah held his gaze for a moment, then carefully. But I already am in the middle of something unstable, he said, just not the part you explained to me. I've been with well over 1,000 women in my life, Noah, Tate said quietly. I've probably had around 250 lovers. He let out a weary sigh. And I've had 5 stalkers. Noah looked up surprised but said nothing. The strange part is that not all of them were people I had a relationship with. I didn't even sleep with some of them. A few convinced themselves there was something between us when there never was. He shook his head. That's one of the unfortunate realities of being wealthy and living a public life. Sometimes people create a version of you in their minds that doesn't exist. Noah remained silent, listening. I never encouraged them, Tate continued. I never gave them hope that there could be a relationship. His expression grew tired. And sometimes it's not even someone I've actually met. A complete stranger can imagine a connection that was never there. He looked directly at Noah. None of those people mattered to me. His voice softened. The person whose attention I've wanted, whose opinion I've cared about, has always been you. Noah held Tate's gaze for a long moment before quietly whispering. I didn't know you carried all of that by yourself. Tate gave a faint, exhausted smile. I never wanted you to carry it, I just wanted you to understand it. That landed. Tate didn't respond immediately, and for the first time the silence wasn't defensive or angry. It was just the weight of realizing that protecting someone by keeping them out and being close to someone were starting to contradict each other in real time. The next morning, the house felt different, quieter in a way that wasn't peaceful. Tate had left early, something about errands, something casual he'd said too quickly, like he was trying not to linger in the silence between them. Noah waited until the front door closed, until the sound of the engine faded. Then he picked up the phone. His grip was steady, but his thoughts weren't. He dialed the number for Tate's old high school. It rang twice. Admissions office, a woman's voice answered. This is Nina speaking, how can I help you? Noah hesitated for only a second. I need information about a former staff member, he said carefully, a teacher who may no longer work there. There was a pause on the other end, polite, cautious. All right, Nina said slowly, what kind of information are you looking for? Noah kept his voice even. There was an incident involving a student, he said. Someone named Tate Blue. I'm trying to confirm if any records still exist regarding a staff member who may have been involved at the time. Another pause, the tone shifted slightly, more procedural now. I can check what's publicly available in our archived records, she said. One moment. Paper rustled faintly through the line. Noah stood still in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, eyes unfocused on the counter. Seconds stretched, then a minute. Nina was quiet for a moment longer on the line. I want to be careful here, she said finally, her tone more measured. What I can access are employment records and archived staff rosters, not personal medical information, disciplinary notes beyond official summaries, or anything confidential like that. Noah listened without interrupting. She continued, papers faintly rustling again. From the staff lists I can see for that time period, she said, most teachers remained in their positions for extended periods. There are a few standard retirements over the years and one staff member who later passed away in a vehicle accident. A pause. But I don't have anything in these records indicating the kind of incidents you're asking about. Mental health documentation, or anything of that nature wouldn't be part of what I can access or confirm. Noah frowned slightly. So there's nothing abnormal on record, he said. That's correct, Nina replied gently. Nothing that would be publicly documented as unusual conduct or cause for record flagging. Then she added a bit more carefully. And I should clarify, I wouldn't be able to verify personal health history for any staff member even if it existed. Those records are protected. Noah shifted his weight slightly, eyes unfocused. Right, he said quietly. The certainty he'd been trying to build didn't come. Instead, everything stayed vague, too neat, too incomplete to settle anything. Is there anything else I can help you with? Nina asked. Noah hesitated. No, he said, that's all, thank you. You're welcome, she replied, take care. The line disconnected. Noah stood there for a long moment, phone still in his hand. The answers he'd hoped for hadn't arrived, and the absence of answers didn't confirm anything either, it just left more space for uncertainty to grow in. Noah stood in the kitchen long after the last call ended. The phone was still in his hand, warm from his grip, but the silence that followed felt colder than it should have. Outside, the morning carried on as if nothing had changed, cars passing, distant footsteps, the soft hum of a world that didn't care what he had just tried to confirm. He set the phone down slowly. For a moment, he just stared at it. No new answers had come from any of the calls, only variations of the same phrase repeated in different voices. "We don't have records of that, it would have been documented, we don't know what you're looking for." Noah leaned back against the counter, exhaling through his nose. Tate's words kept replaying in fragments: Wayne, secrecy, calls, warnings, something from the past that he couldn't talk about. Each piece had felt like it was pointing toward something real, something structured, something with edges that should make sense if he could just see the full shape of it. But the shape kept refusing to appear. Instead, there were gaps. Gaps that the school's answers had only made wider. If something serious had happened, something involving stalking or misconduct or safety, there should have been records. Someone should have known. Someone should have written it down, escalated it, and preserved it in a file somewhere. That was how systems were supposed to work. But what they had told him was simpler and more frustrating than any clear answer. Nothing we can access shows that. Noah frowned slightly, pushing off the counter and packing once across the kitchen. That wasn't the same thing as nothing happened, but it also wasn't the same thing as Tate is telling the truth, and that was the problem. Because both possibilities sat in his mind now, equally unproven, equally loud. If Tate was lying, then the explanation wasn't protection, it was manipulation or avoidance or something worse hidden behind carefully chosen words. But if Tate wasn't lying, then something had happened that was either erased, hidden, or never properly recorded in the first place, and that meant the answers were never going to come easily, no matter how many phone calls Noah made. 2 hours later, Tate came back from the grocery store carrying a few paper bags in his arms. He set them on the kitchen countertop and began unpacking them, putting away boxes of pasta before lining up the ingredients Noah had asked for to make homemade tostadas. Cooking had never been one of Tate's strengths. In fact, Noah had long ago forbidden him from attempting to cook in that kitchen after too many culinary disasters to count. Tate had accepted his role as the grocery shopper while Noah remained firmly in charge of the stove. "Hey," Tate said, holding up a bag with a faint smile. "I picked up everything you wanted for the tostadas." "Thank you," Noah replied as he sorted through the ingredients. "Looks like you remembered everything." "I even double-checked the list," Tate said, sounding almost proud. Noah chuckled softly. "I appreciate it." The light-hearted moment faded almost as quickly as it had appeared. Tate leaned against the counter, his smile disappearing. "Noah." Noah paused, sensing the change in his voice. "We never resolved what happened between us." He hesitated before continuing. "We never talked about why you've been pulling away from me for the last 6 years." Noah slowly set the vegetables on the cutting board without looking up. The kitchen grew quiet. Tate folded his arms across his chest. "I think I deserve some answers." Noah rested both hands on the counter and stared down at it for a long moment before quietly exhaling. "I know." Another silence settled between them as neither man moved, the ingredients for dinner sitting untouched between them while the conversation both had avoided for years finally demanded to be heard. Tate had always spoken like there were things he couldn't say, not like he wouldn't. There was a difference Noah had started to notice only recently. One sounded like control, the other sounded like a constraint, but neither of them solved the same problem. Tate swallowed. "Do you feel anything for me anymore?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Noah didn't answer right away. He looked down, fingers tightening on the edge of the table like he was bracing himself against something internal. Tate nodded slowly because there was nothing left to push against. He took a step back, then another, the space between them widening again exactly as it always did. As he turned toward his room, the truth settled with brutal clarity. Noah was still physically there, still breathing the same air, still sharing the same walls, but whatever had once lived between them, whatever had made closeness easy and love viewable, had ended quietly years ago. Tate was the only one still arriving late, still asking questions, still knocking on a door that wasn't going to open. Tate stopped in the doorway, the words finally spilling out sharp and cracked, accusation braided tightly with grief. When I was 18, everything was great, but in half a day before your birthday, we went from being one person to strangers. We're this far apart. Noah didn't turn around. Don't tell me nothing happened, Tate said. People don't go from what we had to this kind of distance without something breaking or a gradual change in behavior and motivation. Silence stretched on for too long. It drove Tate crazy when Noah wouldn't talk or avoid emotional discussions entirely. We talked every night, Tate continued. We slept next to each other, we knew how the other breathed in the dark, our lives overlapped so completely I didn't know where mine ended and yours began. His voice dropped. And then it was like a switch flipped and I never got told why. Noah's shoulders tightened just barely. I've been chasing the moment it changed, Tate said, quieter now, replaying it, wondering what I said wrong, what I missed, because from where I'm standing it feels like you left me in the middle of a sentence. It wasn't overnight, Noah said, it just looks that way from where you are. Tate shook his head, hurt flashing hot again. That's easy for you to say, you were the one moving away, I was still standing where we'd always been, still living the life we shared. Noah turned then, eyes guarded, tired, and that's the problem. The words hung there unfinished. 6 years, one night, two people remembering the same closeness, one mourning how suddenly it vanished, the other knowing it loosened slowly, silently, long before either of them had the language to say goodbye. I couldn't tell Tate the truth, not then, maybe not ever, because I knew what would happen if I did. He wouldn't understand the feelings underneath it. He wouldn't separate hurt from meaning. He'd hear the wrong thing, reach for the ugliest explanation, say something he could never take back, and once that word was spoken, whatever we still had would be gone for good. I would lose him completely, so I stayed quiet. I told myself it was temporary, that I just needed time, that the feelings would dull if I starved them of air, that if I didn't name them they might disappear on their own, but my birthday had already made the truth unavoidable. Seeing him with Emily that night didn't just hurt, it clarified everything I had been carefully not thinking. It stripped away any illusion that what I felt could stay harmless or hidden, and once I knew I couldn't unknow it. There was only one way to avoid saying the truth out loud: distance. If I slept elsewhere I wouldn't have to explain why his touch suddenly felt dangerous. If I stopped saying the words I wouldn't have to lie when I said them. If I pulled back slowly enough maybe he'd think it was just growing up, just change, just life. I chose the kind of loss that didn't require a confession. It wasn't brave, it wasn't clean, but it was the only option that didn't end with me exposed and alone. So I built the wall, not because I felt nothing, but because I felt too much and there was no safe way to say it. And every night I slept apart from him, I paid the price of that choice, telling myself loneliness was survivable, telling myself silence was mercy, telling myself this was better than the moment he'd look at me differently and decide I was no longer worth keeping in his life at all. Tell me why you're so distant, Tate begged. I chose to avoid my real feelings and tell something true but less earth-shattering instead. The night before my birthday, I said quietly, you were asleep next to me. Tate frowned, a strange, uneasy feeling settling in his chest. Okay. I was asleep but you were moving around in bed and woke me, I went on, and while you were sleeping you crossed a line. His stomach dropped. What do you mean? You touched me, I said. It was accidental. While you were asleep you touched me and touched yourself while on top of me a few times. It was physical, it was intimate, and it wasn't something I consented to. Tate stared at me in horrified shock. I know I don't remember that. I know, I said, that's the problem, you don't remember it at all. His voice rose, panic creeping in. Are you saying I hurt you? He barely choked out, horrified. It didn't get that far. I woke up, I interrupted gently, and I pushed you away, but it was too late. You stopped, you rolled over, you were still asleep. The room suddenly felt too small. No, you didn't hurt or violate me, but you climbed on top of me. You came before I was able to push you off of me. I didn't have the guts to tell you, I said. You were my safe person, and I didn't know how to explain something you didn't even know you'd done. I was embarrassed, and it was humiliating to think about, let alone tell you. Tate's face had gone pale. Why didn't you say anything later on when you got over it? Because you didn't remember, I said. And because I wanted to believe it was a one-time thing, something caused by whatever was happening with you, so I let it go. I swallowed, but I couldn't unfeel it. I couldn't pretend nothing had changed. Tate sank onto the edge of the bed, hands in his hair. I would never want to hurt you. I know, I said softly, and that's why I stayed quiet, But after that night I couldn't be close to you the same way, I couldn't sleep next to you, I couldn't explain why without telling the whole truth, and I wasn't ready for that." Silence filled the space between us. "That night didn't end us because you meant harm," I said. "It ended us because it broke something I didn't know how to name and you didn't know how to fix." Tate didn't argue, because for the first time the wall made sense, not as rejection but as protection. And what had felt to him like distance without cause, to me, the only way I knew how to stay safe without losing him entirely. "Was it a one-time thing?" Tate asked, his voice tight. "Me doing that?" I shook my head. "No, it happened most nights, and I thought sleeping in the spare room would prevent any future incidents or inappropriate accidents." Tate sat back like the air had been knocked out of him. "I don't remember any of this." "I know," I said. "You were asleep, that's why I didn't say anything at the time. You'd wake up confused, embarrassed, not remembering anything, and I didn't want to be the reason you looked at yourself that way. I kind of figured that it could be a sleep disorder or an anxiety issue, and maybe you need a doctor to look at you." His voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me later?" "Because by then," I said, "it wasn't just about what happened, it was about how it changed me, how unsafe closeness suddenly felt. How could I explain that without reopening everything?" Tate pressed his palms into his eyes. "I would have wanted to know." "Maybe," I said gently, "but I didn't know how to tell you without losing you. You know me, Tate, talking about sexuality makes me uncomfortable and physical intimacy embarrasses me. I just couldn't bring myself to form a sentence about it with you." Silence stretched between us, thick, irreversible. "So, when I pulled away," I continued, "it wasn't because I stopped caring. It was because staying close started to cost me something I didn't have words for yet." Tate looked up at me then, devastated. "And all this time I thought you just didn't love me anymore." "I loved you," I said, "that was the problem." Neither of us spoke after that, because some truths don't explode. They settle. They reframe years. They turn distance into something painfully understandable and closeness into something that can never be innocent again. "Did my touching you during the incidents make you scared?" Tate asked, his voice barely steady. "No," I said. "I was embarrassed, and once you finished I felt awkward and uncomfortable." Tate went very still. "But I pushed you away immediately," I continued. "You stopped right away, you were confused, you thought I was Emily." The name sat between us like a bruise. "I didn't tell you," I added quietly, "because you didn't know what you were doing." Tate covered his face with his hands. "God." Silence followed, thick and irreversible. I shook my head before he could spiral any further. "You didn't violate me," I said quietly. "I need you to hear that." "I'm no better than." Tate looked sick. "I thought you were confused and unsure where you were. You didn't assault me, Tate." He looked up stunned. "It was awkward," I went on, "and embarrassing and confusing, but you were asleep, you weren't choosing anything, you weren't trying to hurt me." Tate's voice trembled, but I crossed a line. "You crossed into a moment neither of us understood yet," I said. "That doesn't make you a monster." He searched my face like he didn't trust the mercy in my tone. "I know how it sounds," I added carefully, "and I'm not pretending it didn't affect me, it did, but what hurt wasn't you, it was realizing how complicated everything inside me had become and how alone I felt carrying that." Tate swallowed hard. "You were usually dreaming about girls," I said. "Me waking up to that confusion was uncomfortable, sure, but it wasn't violence, it wasn't intended." I hesitated, then softened my voice. "Please don't turn this into something ugly in your head. I didn't leave because I was harmed. I left because I didn't know how to exist in the space between closeness and reality anymore." Tate exhaled shakily, like he'd been holding his breath for years. "I never thought you were a bad person," I said. "I just didn't know how to stay without my cheeks turning red." The room grew quiet, not with accusation but with something gentler and heavier, understanding. Tate looked confused, wounded. "I never felt like you hurt me," I continued. "Not for a second. I need you to know that I didn't feel violated." He searched my face, like he was afraid of hearing the wrong thing again. "After the first time," I admitted, a small, conflicted smile flickering, "it was honestly kind of hilarious. I laughed. You were half asleep, completely unaware. It was awkward and absurd more than anything." Tate let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "But that doesn't mean it didn't matter," I said quickly. It just means I didn't experience it the way you're punishing yourself for. Tate was uncomfortable and looked guilty, ashamed at what he had done to me. Was I good in the sack? Tate smirked. I ducked my head, heat rushing to my face. Tate, I said, half laughing, half mortified, that's not a conversation we're having. He grinned unrepentant, so that's a yes. I rolled my eyes, still blushing. You always did that, say something outrageous and wait for my reaction. His smile softened, losing the edge. I'm kidding, he said, mostly. The moment passed, lighter than everything that had come before it. Not a confession, not a reopening of old doors, just the familiar rhythm of teasing they'd always shared, careful now, aware of the lines, but still able to laugh without it meaning more than it should. Was I the stud of Lowe's angels in your bed, Noe? I went bright red instantly. Tate, I started, then stopped, flustered. I looked away, then back at him. Maybe. His grin widened, pleased and teasing. I'll take a maybe. I groaned, still blushing. You're impossible. Consistently, he said, laughing, and for just a second the weight lifted, not because anything was resolved, but because the moment didn't demand more than it was, awkward, familiar, and oddly human. But there was a crack in his voice now, just enough to hear if you knew him. Did you remember any of those times? I asked, suddenly needing to know. Tate's smile faded completely. No, he said, one word, flat, honest. I watched it sink into him as he said it, like he was realizing it at the same time I was. Nothing, I pressed. He shook his head slowly, not a second, not a flash, not a feeling. His voice dropped, it's just blank. He let out a breath that sounded more like a loss than relief. Which means whatever I thought I knew, whatever I felt, I was missing whole pieces of the story. He looked at me then, really looked, and you were carrying all of it alone. The joke was gone now, the bravado too. I was so sure of myself back then, he said quietly, so confident I knew what was real. Turns out I didn't even know what I was doing. Noah laughed, trying to diffuse the tension. I remember thinking my partner was confident and really good, Tate said, shrugging. I thought it was Emily. Good for you, somebody got laid even if it was only a dream, I sigh. At least I never shared a bed with my mom, Tate winked at me. You, I blushed. Oh my God, Tate muttered, the redness spread from his neck to his ears. That is, I am so mortified. Noah was still half laughing, half cringing. Tate quickly explained, I didn't mean it like. I know, Noah cut in, covering his face with his hands. I just wow, I wish I could erase the last 10 seconds. He peeked out between his fingers, groaning, please tell me you're never repeating that sentence again. The moment sat there, awkward, absurd, painfully human, brushing up against shame, neither of them quite sure whether to laugh more or pretend the conversation had never happened at all. Forgive me, Noah, Tate said, his voice breaking, for making you uncomfortable, please. I looked at him, wary but listening. I rarely sleep through the night, so I finally saw a sleep doctor earlier this year, Tate went on, rushing the words. She diagnosed me with sexsomnia and sleep apnea. It explains the gaps, the stuff I don't remember. It wasn't intentional ever. He giggled, then added far too quickly, and just to be clear, I never shared a bed with my mom. I groaned out loud, gross, Tate, that was not reassuring, that was just yucky. He winced, okay, bad add-on, I panicked. I rubbed my face, I'm glad you got help, I'm glad there's an explanation, but please no more clarifying examples. Tate nodded, mortified. Deal, I'll stick to apologies and medical facts. The tension didn't vanish, but it shifted. Less fear now, more awkward honesty, the kind that makes you groan and laugh at the same time, even when everything still hurts a little. So we shouldn't sleep in the same bed anymore, I reasoned aloud. Tate hesitated. If you're more comfortable with us in different rooms, I'll try. No, I said immediately. He looked surprised. Tate smirked then, the tension cracking just a little. The doctor says something interesting, he added. I have a trigger that brings me out of sexsomnia activity. Apparently, the name Noah snaps me out of the nighttime physical activity so I'm fully awake. I blinked, you're kidding. I wish, he said. If I start doing anything strange while I'm asleep, all you have to do is say your name. I wake up instantly. I stared at him for a long second, weighing it. Okay, I said finally. Tate nodded. Just to be clear, Noah said, looking at Tate, You only did those things to me at night for 2 months when you were 18 while you were still figuring yourself out, then you snapped out of it and it never happened again. Tate nodded. It lasted about 8 weeks, Noah said quietly. That was all. Once I realized it was temporary, I walked away from it. It never happened again. His smirk softened into something more serious. I'm not trying to make excuses, Tate added. I just want you to feel safe. I nodded, then we're clear. Crystal, he said. The agreement sat between us, not perfect, not romanticized, but honest. Not a return to how things were, not a punishment either. Just two people choosing boundaries, humor, and clarity instead of silence. Tate said it gently, like he was stating a fact, not trying to stir anything up. You weren't bad in beds, Noah, he added, now that I know it was you. I'm actually glad it was with someone I trusted instead of a stranger. He meant it plainly, a clumsy, earnest, platonic compliment, nothing more. Oh, I said a little too quickly. My heart, traitor that it was, gave an unmistakable flutter. Tate didn't notice, or maybe he did and chose not to. He just shrugged, embarrassed but sincere. I'm not saying it means anything, he clarified, just, I don't regret that part. I nodded, keeping my face carefully neutral. Right, yeah, I get that. But the words lingered anyway, because even when someone doesn't mean something romantically, being chosen, even retroactively, still has a way of landing softer than it should. Noah found himself wishing just for a moment that he were a girl, because then he was sure Tate would see him clearly as girlfriend material instead of something undefined and off-limits. That night, them sleeping by each other in bed happened without discussion, without hesitation, like their bodies remembered something their words still refused to touch. They ended up in the same bed the way they used to when they were kids. No decision, no are you sure. Tate came up behind Noah automatically, fitting there like it was the only shape he knew. His arms settled around Noah's waist, not possessive, not demanding, just there. Familiar, protective in a way that didn't ask for anything back. It felt natural, that was the part that hurt. Noah lay still at first, waiting for the moment when something would change, when Tate's breathing would hitch, when his hand would wander, when the closeness would turn into expectation. It never did. Tate stayed exactly where he was, forehead near the back of Noah's neck, breathing warm and steady like a promise he didn't know how to make while awake. Nothing happened, and somehow that mattered more than if it had. Noah's body slowly relaxed, the tension he'd carried for months easing inch by inch. This wasn't desire or confusion or hope, it was rest. It was being held without being asked to become anything else. For the first time in a long while, Noah didn't brace himself for loss. Tate shifted once in his sleep, pulling Noah closer with a quiet sound, like even unconscious he was afraid of distance. Noah didn't wake, he didn't pull away, he slept straight through the night, deep and undisturbed, wrapped in something that felt painfully like home. By morning, nothing would have changed. No confessions, no clarity, no resolution, just the quiet devastation of how right it still felt and how careful they'd been not to cross a line neither of. They knew how to survive. It felt unfamiliar at first. 6 months was long enough for even the quietest habits to go dormant, but their bodies remembered before their minds did. Tate's hand found Noah's in the dark without searching, fingers slipping into place as if nothing had ever been broken. His breathing evened out, a small smile tugging at his mouth, the kind he never meant to show anyone. In sleep, Tate wasn't guarded. He wasn't angry. He was just there, safe. Noah lay half awake for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to Tate breathe. The weight of him beside Noah felt grounding, familiar in a way that hurt a little. When Noah finally drifted off, his dreams weren't dramatic or painful, they were simple. The two of them were laughing on the couch, walking side by side without talking, fingers brushing, then staying. At some point in the night, Tate shifted closer, forehead resting against Noah's shoulder like it had 100 times before. Noah stirred but didn't pull away, he never did. For the first time in months, neither of them felt alone in the dark. The bed felt too big and too small at the same time. Tate's fingers were intertwined with Noah's like muscle memory, like his body had made a choice his mind still refused to own. His smile came in his sleep, soft, unguarded, and it vanished every time he shifted, like even his dreams knew better than to linger. Noah noticed everything. The way Tate held on tighter when Noah sighed. The way his thumb brushed Noah's knuckle like an apology he'd never say out loud. Noah stared at the ceiling, heart aching, because months ago this would have meant something and would have been safe. Now it was confusing, now it was different. Noah dreamed anyway. He dreamed of being 13 again, sharing a bed because there wasn't anywhere else to sleep. of Tate laughing, saying, "Don't make it weird like that," ever stopped Noah's heart from wanting more. In the dream, Tate said "I love you" easily, carelessly, and Noah woke up with the echo of it burning in his chest. Tate shifted then, pressing closer, forehead against Noah's shoulder. He murmured Noah's name in his sleep, not loud enough to be brave, not clear enough to count. Noah didn't move, he didn't squeeze back, he just lay there, awake in the dark, wondering how someone could hold you like they were afraid to lose you and still choose every day to let you go. By morning, Tate wouldn't remember smiling. Noah would remember everything. Susie didn't knock. She never did anymore, not since Tate had shoved a spare key under the ceramic planter and said, "In case you ever need it," like that hadn't really meant in case Noah ever needs someone who isn't me. She let herself in quietly, the door clicking shut behind her. The Rambler still smelled like night, stale coffee, clean laundry, something warmer she didn't name. Susie shifted the takeout bag in her arm, donuts and cream bumping softly together, sugar already dusting the thin paper. "Hello," she called, keeping her voice light. No answer. She set the bag down on the counter and followed the sound of breathing down the hall. The bedroom door was cracked just enough for her to see. Tate and Noah were asleep in the same bed. It took her a second to register it, not because it was shocking but because it was wrong in a quiet way. Tate was turned toward Noah, fingers tangled in his like he always did when he forgot himself. Noah lay stiff, eyes closed, not touching back like he was afraid even sleep would betray him. Susie's chest tightened. She didn't take a photo this time. Instead, she stood there longer than she should have, watching Tate's face soften in sleep, watching Noah flinch when Tate shifted closer like he'd been burned before and was waiting for it to happen again. Susie froze, not the soft, fond kind of pause she used to have when she caught them tangled together on the couch. This was different. This was the kind of shock that steals the air from your lungs before you realize you needed it. They were in the same bed. Her fingers tightened around the paper bag until the handles creased. For a split second, she honestly thought she'd misunderstood. Maybe Noah had crashed on the couch, maybe Tate was alone, but no. There was Tate's arm thrown protectively across Noah's waist. Noah was turned slightly away, like he'd fallen asleep trying not to lean in and failed anyway. Susie's heart started pounding. After months of coldness, after the silence, the fights, the careful distance, the pretending, she stepped closer to the doorway without meaning to. Tate smiled in his sleep, actually smiled, and that was what did it. That was what made her stomach drop. She hadn't seen that smile since before everything went wrong. "Oh my God," she whispered, barely sounding at all. Noah shifted, brow furrowing even in sleep like his dreams weren't kind to him. He didn't smile back, he looked tired, like rest was something happening to him, not for him. Susie felt it then, sharp and awful. This wasn't just a reunion, this wasn't mere healing. This was two people reaching for the only comfort they knew and pretending it didn't cost anything. Her first instinct was to back out quietly, pretend she'd never seen it. Her second was to wake them both up and demand to know what the hell they thought they were doing. She did neither. She just stood there, stunned, watching Tate cling like he was afraid Noah might disappear again before morning. "Jesus," she breathed. Carefully, so carefully, she set the donuts down on the counter like an offering that suddenly felt inappropriate. Sugar and cream for something this bitter. Susie stepped back, heart racing, already knowing this moment was going to break something. Maybe not today, maybe not out loud, but nothing this fragile ever survived daylight. Susie didn't move. Shock gave way to something quieter, heavier, something that sat in her chest and didn't ask permission. They were beautiful like that, not in a romantic way she could joke about later, not in the aw, look at them way she'd always used to soften the truth. This was raw, private, the kind of closeness you only fall into when you've already lost everything else. Tate was holding Noah like he was a secret he no longer deserved. His fingers were threaded through Noah's, gripped too tight for sleep, like even unconscious. He didn't trust the world not to take him away again. Noah's face was turned slightly aside, lashes damp, mouth set in that familiar line Susie had learned meant "I'm still here, even if it hurts." Susie swallowed. She loved them both, that was the problem. And somewhere in the middle of that love was a sharp, aching envy she hated herself for. Not because she wanted what they had, but because she knew she never would have something this deep, this ruinous, this impossible to walk away from. They could hurt each other and still reach. She would have learned to let go. Her eyes stung. She pressed her lips together, steadying herself, watching Tate's chest rise and fall, watching Noah accept the weight of him even in sleep. Months apart, and this was still where they ended up. Not healed, not forgiven, just together. I hope it's worth it, she whispered, not to them but to the universe, to the morning waiting on the other side of the door. Susie stepped back at last, closing the door with care like you would with something breakable you didn't own.